Hey there, this is our new house, or what exists of it so far. And from the feedback in the first video around this topic, I figured we'll go ahead and make another one. And this time I want to get down deep into the finances. I think that will be very insightful for a lot of you who are on the fence about whether or not building a custom home is worth it. I'm going to reveal everything. I'm going to talk about all of the expenses we've incurred to date. Like I mentioned in the previous video, I've got literally an entire worksheet of all of the costs involved in building a custom home like this. And again, this one isn't even really that complicated. You can get way more custom than this, and it can get certainly way more expensive. So we've been trying to kind of weigh the different amenities, things we want to build into the home against the budget, which is tightening by the day. Are you ready? Stay with me.
Are you sick and tired of screwing with the same basic tool we've been using for decades? Looking for something that won't result in a cramped hand or time wasted? Then check out the LTD Screwdriver. It's literally just called Screwdriver, but don't let the name fool you. It's not ratchet, but it has a built-in one based on MegaPro's long-standing and reliable design for extra durability and ease of use. Nothing drives me crazier than spending half an hour tightening down case fans. But the LTD Screwdriver packs loads of torque in its beefy handle. Also in its beefy handle, 12 different bits for various applications. Oh, and have you seen my shaft? And look, if anything goes wrong, floating around somewhere in the ether is the Trust Me Bro limited lifetime warranty. So be sure to check these out via the links below.
I want to kick things off by taking you down this hallway off to the right side of the house because I want to show you some of the progress we've made since the last video. So before, I don't think much of this at all existed. Now the AC units themselves are not here, although you can see some of it is already kind of wired in for install. But we do have all of the vents up top. So it just looks like a big old spaghetti nest up there. And you can see all of these AC lines run to different rooms in the house. Here's a better shot of it all in the main room. You can see where it splits into so many different directions. They have come in since the last video, run all of this, run all of the entrances for the vents, and they've even run it upstairs. Now, this part's gonna be super cool because you guys didn't get to see the upstairs. The only upstairs part of the house is my office. So you just walk up these stairs here, and then a few more here, and check that out. This is such a large space. I don't even know what I'm gonna do with all of it. I really haven't thought this through, like where I'm gonna have desks, if I'm gonna have multiple setups, multiple scenes for filming or whatnot, but I mean, this is just so much space. And tying back into the AC, you can see we've got two vents for this room. And this is important because, well, it being the only upstairs part of the house means that it's gonna get pretty hot up here, especially with all kinds of computers and things running. Now you'll notice it gets a little awkward right here, and in hindsight, we definitely could have planned this a bit better, but I still think it's gonna be a huge improvement over what we have currently. So the entrance to the actual office is going to be framed in right here. There's gonna be a door placed in this frame. And then if you are kind of in this like intermediate space between the stairs and the door to the office, you'll have two small rooms, two closets. One off this side is gonna be my storage room. It's gonna be for all of my computer components and things. This should be plenty of space. I don't need much more than this, so I think it will do. Now this smaller closet off to the left, if you're walking into the entrance of the office, is going to be our server closet. This is not very deep, so we're not gonna go full server racks or anything. But we're gonna have all of the Cat6 that we're having wired into this house run into this closet. So all of the connections will run here. This is where we'll have the servers for our security cameras. Might even have a full-on PC in here. You're probably thinking, well, Greg, it's gonna get really hot. So what are you gonna do about the heat? Well, we have sort of kind of a solution. I just realized we don't have ventilation. We don't have an AC line running into this closet. So we do have an AC line running into the larger closet. We don't have one in the smaller. I don't think that's gonna be a problem though. We don't really have any clearance for it anyway, unless we run it right in through there. But this is actually our exhaust line. So this is similar to what you'd find in a bathroom. You turn the fan on, right, to kind of cool it off or to get rid of a smell. And this is gonna help evacuate the hot air. Now, I don't know about this particular unit. It's probably gonna run, I don't know, a bit loud. So we might have to do something about that in the long run. But the important thing is we do have a way to get rid of heat in this closet. And yes, it will get very hot in here. So far, it's looking really good. And our builder has been great about working with the limitations of not only the budget, but also our creativity. You know, it's really hard to think of everything all at once. And that's one of the reasons why a custom build can get so expensive, right? If you don't think of everything up front, then it becomes very difficult to plan a budget around something that's always changing, and costs are always changing as well. So You have to weigh a lot of things and you have to be patient. A build like this technically should already be done, but we had some holdups and that's led to some increased costs. I'm gonna sit down for this part because we're about to get deep into the finances. So like I said, this project is slated to cost around $1.1 million, which yes, is a whole lot of money, and that means a whole lot of debt for us. There are very loud bugs. The one thing that I want you guys to bear in mind here, especially if you're building a custom home for the first time, whatever budget you have set with the bank is not a strict budget. What I mean by that is you can exceed that amount. The problem is the bank is not going to foot the bill for that extra cost. So if we hit our $1.1 million cap and by that time we haven't gotten appliances yet, let's say that's the last thing we're waiting on is a stove and a fridge. The bank is not going to just cough up another 10, 20 grand for a stove and fridge and then throw that into the mortgage. The mortgage in our case is already set in stone. Like I said, it's a modified loan. So we have a construction loan that has a fixed interest rate, and that interest rate will roll over into the mortgage later, which is how we were able to get it so low compared to what you get a mortgage for today, around what, 7-8%? Heck, a construction loan is going to be even higher than that. We locked in 4.9% with our bank, and that will become our mortgage interest rate as well once we finish building. All that to say, please keep a healthy cash reserve on hand. I would say no less than maybe 20-30% of the total loan amount, just in case you go over. And it's not just for the cases where you're, I don't know, changing your mind and wanting to add nicer and nicer things, and that's what tips you over the budget. It's also for the unforeseen, the acts of God, so to speak, where, you know, something like COVID happens and then you have a huge shortage of, say, lumber. Lumber goes up 400%. You obviously didn't account for that in your budget. Now, a good general contractor will pad each of these budgets, and if you're good about keeping up with where the money is being spent, then obviously you could even come under budget on a build, although I don't expect that to be the case here. Now, what I'm showing you here is our draw schedule, and basically just a bunch of things we have to pay for that all sort of culminate into a home. Some homes won't have some of the things listed here. Some homes will have things that we don't have listed. For example, a pool, totally optional. We do have a budget for a pool, and we actually went over a bit on that budget. So I think we had $60,000 slated. I know for some of you in other parts of the world, you're thinking $60,000, that's a huge amount of money. That should get you any pool you want. Well, here in the States, it doesn't really work like that, and labor costs in particular account for large portions of these budgets. But we went over by about $10,000, so that was a $10,000 check I had to write up front. We treated that as a deposit. The bank will cover the remaining $60,000 since that's in this draw schedule you're seeing here. The first things you'll have to pay for when building a house are your architect, your blueprints, your engineering plans, and your permits. Also surveys, if it's a lot that doesn't already have, say, a topo survey or something that a builder or architect will need. The architect in our case costs around $15,000. You could get someone who will draft a floor plan for much cheaper than that. But we wanted to go with someone who'd been in the business a very long time, was an actual real architect, and they can save you money in the long run. The way that they design homes is usually in conjunction with engineering permits and things that they expect to go into a home apart from just, right, the sheer wood. You've got to think about AC lines, you've got to think about electrical, you've got to think about plumbing, and the way that simply a roof is designed can really affect the cost of other things that go into a house. So make sure that you don't cheap out on whoever designs your home. Now, if you want to design it yourself, you could also do that, but you're still going to need someone to sign and seal your plans. You'll need either an architect or an engineer to send those into the city or the county, wherever your house is being built. They will need to sign off on those before a bank ever gives you money to build said house. So right off the top, you're looking at $20,000, $30,000 before you even break ground. Then you've got good old concrete. This stuff right here, what we're standing on, the foundation of this home, which involves a stem wall, by the way. It's not a simple slab. There's actually a lot more that goes into it to make it even more sturdy since we're kind of on a hill and surrounded by lakes. We wanted to make sure that that foundation was solid. That stem wall cost us a little over $40,000. Remember, we're just talking about raw materials here. Concrete alone was $40K. Then you've got site work. That's prepping for the stem wall itself, $5,000. Site work backfill, $2,500. Form and pour steps, again, steps that go into the stem wall, $4,400. And then we come to framing. So that's all of this right here, over $80,000 just in framing. Now, if you don't see a breakdown between the product itself and the labor, assume that both are included. If there's a separate charge for labor, it will be listed here. Otherwise, it's baked into the total cost. So framing might seem expensive to you guys, $80,000 just for this, but you've got to think about the manpower, the labor that goes into not only designing this, but also installing it. And there's a lot of wood in this house. Up next, masonry. In our case, concrete block. This stuff is super sturdy. It surrounds the entire first floor of the house. And I believe AC'd, we have like 4,000 square feet of space. Under roof is about 5,500 or so. But yeah. The exteriors of a 4,000 square foot AC space comes out to around $32,000 all in. Now, I wasn't gonna talk about this, but I really can't help myself. It seems like every time someone shows off an American home under construction, a European or two sneaks into the comments and just, I don't know, just trashes the way these are designed. Oh, you shouldn't be surprised that your house is blowing away in a tornado or a hurricane. It's literally made of cardboard. I don't know why we were being attacked for building a wooden house when in reality, this isn't even a wooden house. I mean, the interior, sure, it's got wooden framing. I'd prefer that, frankly, over the European counterpart where you've got concrete walls you can't drill into or add things very easily. I prefer the modability, so to speak, of a wooden interior framed house. However, the exterior of this house, like I said, for the most part, is concrete block. I don't know where the talk of wood was frankly coming from. This house is built to hurricane code here in Central Florida. The roof is rated for 150 plus mile-an-hour winds, basically category 5 hurricanes. I would put the way this house is designed up against anything I've seen in Europe, hands down. And my wife's European, I feel like I can safely say that. Now, speaking of the roof, you can see it is coming along nicely. We've made some progress since the last video. We don't have the tile installed yet, but I believe up to this point, everything inside or underneath the roof specifically is waterproofed. They put several coatings of things in here that keep water from dripping inside the home, and that allows us to put drywall up without actually having the quote-unquote shingles or the tile installed. And another quick side note, we have windows installed. You probably noticed that. Now these are white on the interior, but the wife wanted, wow, that's like blown out. Sorry about that. The wife wanted black trimmed exterior windows. So on the outside, they're black. On the inside, they're white. That was cheaper than going all black. The all white windows were cheaper than the ones we have here, but she really cared about this, so we made room for it in the budget. By the way, those two things, the roof and the windows, were a huge chunk of the budget. So about $70,000 for the tile alone. Just the tile we're putting over the roof that's already there. That is no small amount of money. And they're gonna look like this. They're gonna be like a darker kind of charcoal color. We wanted to kind of simulate a typical shingle look, but obviously tile is gonna be a lot more durable, again, rated for higher wind speeds, and actually will save on insurance and insurance policies. If they see that your roof is a little more robust, that can actually lower your premiums a tad. I wouldn't count on that with insurance companies being the way they are in most cases, but it can help, just something I wanted to mention, and it will give you a bit more peace of mind too if you know that your roof is a little over-engineered. And the other thing we mentioned, windows, $23,000. That's actually pretty cheap considering we went for the black framed options, and I don't think that covers everything. I'll show you, we've got some sliding doors around back, and it doesn't also include the front door, which is gonna be a custom door. I'm not sure what we're gonna go with yet, but I think we've only got like $5,000 or so for a front door. That sounds like a lot of money, but it really doesn't go too far in the way of front doors. Next, we've got stucco. That's gonna be the primary exterior texture of this house, or the material, and that cost us around $25,000. We are gonna have some brick and stone that's gonna be mixed in, obviously, with some paint or stain for some of the wood accents, and that's just another huge chunk. You're looking at $13,000 for the paint and about $6,000 for the stone. The plumbing, which we've already run in the house, I haven't showed you much of that, but you probably saw it in some of the walls. Plumbing alone was $31,500. I just keep picturing these dollar amounts as like physical cars. Like you could buy a car just for the amount of plumbing that went into this house. It's That's a lot. Same goes for electrical. That's not installed yet. That's actually the next thing to be done. And then Cat6, the low voltage stuff, I'll talk about that at the end. But that's going to cost around $30,000. HVAC, that's about $20,000. Plumbing, trim, electrical fixtures. I mean, it's a few thousand here and there, but it all adds up. The septic tank, that's going to go out front. It's going to be hidden into the slope or the gradient of this lot. That's $8,000. We don't have access to city sewer out here. And then insulation, $13,000. Sheesh, just an insulation. And I believe that does include labor, since it's not itemized here, but man. I won't bother going through every single item in this draw schedule, but feel free to pause, ask questions if you have them in the comment section. I'll do my best to check them out. But you can see there's a lot of stuff here, and this actually doesn't cover all of it, so it's itemized enough for the bank, but there's still some things that aren't specified yet that we're going to have to work out, including individual appliance costs, some sorts of trim, crown molding and things if you want to get fancy there. We have budgets for things like the floor, types of flooring, cabinets, countertops, and that's my wife's job. She's having fun picking all that stuff out. I told her as long as she stays in the budget, it doesn't really matter to me what she picks. Just one last thing I want to mention about the draw schedule. At the very bottom, you'll see a builder's fee. This is our general contractor's fee. Now, we could have built this entire thing ourselves without a GC, and we wouldn't have that fee. The problem is I don't have the time. My wife certainly doesn't have the time with 2 kids. And so we thought this was the best fit for us. It might not be for you though, and if you're confident about your logistics and planning and whatnot, and you know the ins and outs of building a house like this, you might be able to do it without one. I know plenty of people who pull that off, but it wasn't in the cards for us at this moment. His fee is normally 10%. He actually reduced that to around 7% to accommodate the remaining things we wanted in our budget. That was something he didn't have to do. That is very appreciated. Our builder, if you guys don't know, is a very honest man. One of the reasons why we liked him and were drawn to him. He's very upfront. He's very direct about costs and about limitations with design and budget. That's perfect. That's exactly who we wanted. And so far, he's been extremely efficient. He shows up all the time. You definitely don't want a GC who doesn't show up to his projects. It makes no sense to hire somebody who's never going to be hands-on and who's not going to be able to see things with his or her own eyes. So we're really fortunate to have picked the person that we did who has done this great a job so far. Now, the last thing I want to end with is the Cat6 wiring. So that's considered part of the low voltage budget. And I initially didn't expect to have to spend any of that budget. Well, I did expect to spend some, but I didn't expect to have to hire anybody. I was going to drop all of my own Cat6 from the attic and all the places in the house that I wanted it. Now, I've never owned a house that has viable Cat6 locations. So I wanted to make sure that all of that was very strictly outlined in this budget. I wanted, specific locations. It's all been planned out, where computer desks and things are gonna go in each of these rooms. And so yeah, that was a role that I wanted to be a big part of. Unfortunately, along came Florida. So Florida stepped in and they told us that since we aren't certified, we cannot drop our own low voltage cabling. Even Cat6, which at the time it's dropped, doesn't have any power running through it. It's not working. It's not connected to anything on either end. It's just literally physically being dropped from the attic. They told us that we can't do that because we aren't certified. And there's some liability concerns and things. I'm not worried about any of that. Who am I going to sue if I fall from my own attic? Myself? That doesn't make any sense. So I was a bit bummed by that. Basically, it means I have to hire somebody to literally, physically drop Cat6 cable from my attic. That's silly. But it's the game you play. Now, from each of those Cat6 locations, we're gonna have all of that, of course, run into our server closet. So it will probably all funnel in from somewhere up there. It'll run around back. We'll have our little server rack here with all of those connections. And yeah, so it'll all be hot. We're also gonna have our ISP stuff routed in here. So whoever we end up going with, I don't know if we have Spectrum or Frontier, whoever, they're gonna be wired into here. So that'll run straight into our switch panel and everything else we're gonna have. So yeah, unfortunately I can't drop the cable, but what I can do is install the boxes. So the RJ45 ports, like the Ethernet boxes on the sides of the studs. This is where you'll actually physically connect your computer to a wall. That I can do. It's the stupidest thing. I can do that, but I can't physically drop cabling. I don't know. So I wanted to be hands-on with some of this stuff. You know, like the Cat6 stuff, that's right up my alley. That's stuff I work with all the time. Why is that a concern? Who knows? Florida says we can't do it if we want to pass inspection, which is coming up soon. So before we put up the drywall, which is coming right after we run the electrical and the low voltage, we'll have an inspector come in. He'll make sure that everything is up to code, up to standard, looks good. Because once you drywall this stuff up, it's gone. It disappears. You're not gonna see any of it. If there's issues with the way that they've, I don't know, done things, you won't see it because it's gonna be covered. So that's why it's important to have an inspection before drywall is put in. But once that's in, holy cow, this is gonna look like a totally different house. When you can't see through walls for whatever reason, the house seems bigger. I don't know. The past 2 houses we've built, they always seem bigger once drywall's in. It just seems counterintuitive because everything feels a little more enclosed, but then you get a real sense of space. And again, I'm really happy with this layout. I feel like I'm playing The Sims in real life. It seriously is the coolest thing to show up here week after week and see the progress that we've made on this house. And check this out. Look, we've even got these like really cool slidey doors and they go all the way down. So we can open up, look at that, this entire section. And it just keeps going. Now, the trim piece here is pretty big. You can see my foot for scale. I'm a size 10, in case you're wondering. It's a very large trim piece, but obviously it has to be. And then when you back up from it, of course, you just get that huge, huge opening, all of that fresh air coming into the house, all of the bugs as well. Remember, this is Florida. So all that to say, it's gonna cost a little more than 1.1 million in reality to build this house. Again, we've got the architect fees, the bank doesn't cover that. The overage on the pool already, 10K out of pocket, that check's already written. It hurts, but it's all we could afford. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's all I wanted to finance. I only wanted to put a bare minimum pool in the budget because I wanted to adhere to that. I didn't want to have all this extra padded stuff that is just an excuse to spend more money that frankly we don't need. We don't need a bigger pool. We don't need an elaborate slide or crazy fountain. We could always add those things later. For now, my concern is taking care of this build, paying down this debt, and then we can have some fun. I'm still a bit overwhelmed. That's probably not going to go anywhere anytime soon, but I will always make an effort to be upfront with you guys in videos like these. So if there's anything else you want to know about, I'm happy to disclose all of it. If you want to know the ins and outs of building a custom home like this. Again, it's been super exciting, super stressful so far, but we've only got a few months to go. And then believe it or not, this house will be finished and ready to be occupied. It's hard to imagine now, I know, but hopefully before Christmas. That's what, July 2023? We should be in here before Christmas. It's what they keep telling me, but I've heard stories. So if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing. Let me know what you think about the progress so far and what else you'd like to see in the future. If videos like these pique your interest, again, I'm all ears. Let me know what you want to see next and I'll be happy to create. It's fun to have you guys tag along. It really is. And most of your comments have been super positive, super encouraging. So thank you for that. Thank you for the support. Just watching videos like these is a huge help. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm getting bit by bugs. My name's Greg. Thanks for building with me.